Okay, so we're going to start with the basic metaphor here. So we're talking about positioning, right? And we can think about this in a lot of different ways, but this is a metaphor that I found useful. So we imagine sort of the positioning of a person, right? A human being. So we have a person and they're somewhere, and that person might be looking somewhere. So they might have a gaze. They might have an expression on their face, so they might have a facial expression. If we're describing how they're positioned in the world, we might think about it this way. We might think about the angle and position of the arms and legs. We also might think about the location, right? Where they are in space. Oops. But then we're also sort of in context, so we can think about the other people around this individual. So this person might be close by, and then maybe there's another person that's further away, right? And so we can also think about these individuals as having space, as having facial expressions, a gaze, different positioning of their arms and legs, right, in different locations. And so we can think about this as the basic, and then also sort of the proximity, just to make this clear here. Proximity to others. All right, so this is sort of the metaphor for an individual, a human, right? But if we think about it in the business context, we can think about these things as vision. We can think about messaging in terms of the tactics, just like sort of we might gesture and posture. And we can also think about our market position, where we are in the market. And obviously we can also think about our partners. And that could be vendors, that could be customers, right? And so this metaphor will get us to begin thinking about the complexity of when it comes to corporate strategy. Okay, so I think it's important that we break down positioning here. And the reason is because when we apply this metaphor to the corporate context, obviously it's quite complex. So we need to be able to understand, all of these layers. So if we remember that again, if we think about this metaphor, we have a vision, right? We have maybe messaging and positioning, ways we're expressing ourselves as an organization, a location in the market, sort of position in the market, and then maybe we're working with partners, right? Some maybe who are close to us, and then some maybe who are further away from us. And they all have their own positioning, right? And so we need to understand that there's both internal and external ways that we can accomplish positioning in the market because of the ways these elements are intertwined in so many cases. So if we think internally, we're thinking about things like, of course, internal comms, the way we talk about things internally. You can think about promotions, who you move up in the organization. Also in terms of resources, who you give headcount to, right? Are we building partnership teams? Are we building, DEI teams? This is a way of positioning ourselves in the market, and then other types of resources as well. Externally, again, maybe things that we more traditionally think of as positioning, but everything from blogs to social to all sorts of partner programming and other types of programming, all the way to the product itself, right? How we build the product, for example, in EdTech, in terms of how much we are committed to accessibility or other areas of consumer or user interest. These are ways that we're able to express that, right, externally. So we need to remember that when we're talking about positioning, I am talking about sort of it at a very high level, but I think it allows us to view how these things are connected and how we might push and pull on some of these levers to adjust our positioning in response to competition, or to bolster our positioning in response to a challenge, etc. So we have this now as well. One of the reasons I have been thinking about this metaphor and I found it useful is because of the way it helps me understand the complexity of positioning with partnership, right? So when we're talking about positioning itself, it already appears to be complex, right? But when we include our ecosystem of partners, it becomes even more complex. So, for example, I think traditionally, or when you read or listen to folks talk about this, we do understand that there may be a difference between our affiliate partners and our research partners and our technology and integration partners, right? But I think this is missing sort of the larger picture that I'm attempting to get through here, which is that we need to understand that yes, there is arguably a relationship here, maybe, but we need to understand that these are also, positioned organizations in many cases, and sometimes when we're talking about influencers, maybe they're not as strongly positioned or something like that, but in the modern business context, everyone is an ecosystem, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But so then when we think about this, our integration technology partners, did it backwards, all of these need to be sort of taken into consideration because, as I'll show in just a second, we can see how easily these things can affect each other. So I'll just finish up this for the sake of completeness. Okay, so there is sort of this idea of just understanding that even though we are aware that we need to have a plan, maybe an approach or a strategy with dealing with our affiliates or if we're growing an affiliate program, but we also understand that it's not as simple quite as that. And if we think about it like that, we're not only maybe adding risk, but we're missing opportunities. So now we have this.